Well, good afternoon. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. This is a tropical update for the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, the Fleet Response Working Group, which is all part of the All Hazards Consortium that helps to move fleet utility vehicles across state borders safely so they can get to restore power quicker, and also to share information between private sector organizations and state and federal agencies to help the information flow go much smoother. So we do have active tropics still out there. We have Hurricane Lee. Hurricane Lee is a Category 3 hurricane, winds of 120 miles per hour. You can see it spinning right there just north of Puerto Rico. And to the east of Lee, we have another storm spinning. That is Margot, and it's a tropical storm about to be a hurricane, named a hurricane any minute now, because the winds have increased, and it really looks quite impressive even from this vantage point, 22,300 miles above the equator. The GOES satellite from NOAA is observing all of these systems spinning in the ocean. Now, what I want to do is talk to you about what's going to happen with Lee. And I'm going to switch over to GeoCollaborate here. And what I have displayed are the tropical storm force wind probabilities as the forecast period moves on into Thursday and into Friday. So what you see here is Hurricane Lee. And this down here is the area of tropical storm force winds. I'll zoom in on this a little bit. This is the area of tropical storm force winds. Let me turn off the probability of tropical storm force winds so you can see what's happening here. So the probability of tropical storm force winds is turned off. This is the actual area of tropical storm force winds. And inside this orange area are the hurricane force winds that go up to 120 miles per hour. And the latest observation from the National Hurricane Center is that we have seen wind gusts to 150 miles per hour as Lee really starts to reform. It's been going through what we call eyewall replacements cycles. And when it does that, it kind of either maintains its strength or goes down just a little bit. But what I want to focus on here is the forecast, because you can see here it's forecast to take a turn towards the north, and then it's going to accelerate. All these periods here that I'll click on, you can see are forecast periods. This is valid 72 hours. So on September 14th, which is Thursday, Lee is forecast to be well east of Florida and Georgia, well east of Florida and Georgia. As a matter of fact, the only impacts there will be from swells generating rip currents, and that is life-threatening in itself. So please, all up and down the East Coast, don't go in the water, particularly alone, and only swim where lifeguards are guarding the beaches. But you can see the forecast here as we go a 24-hour period to September 15th, which is Friday. Lee is expected to be off the North Carolina coast, but the wind field is going to expand dramatically. It's going to get much larger than this as the storm moves to the north. And look at the distance that it travels. Let me take this full screen so you can see what's going on. I'll back out just a little bit here so you can see a little bit wider. This is the forecast valid on the 15th, which is Friday. And here's the forecast for September 16th, which is Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can see how fast Lee is picking up speed. And so while the storm is forecast to have 80 mile per hour winds, the wind field is going to extend beyond this cone. So that means that we have an increasing risk or threat to New England. So from Connecticut to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, also New Hampshire and Maine, those of you who are there that need to prepare your critical infrastructure or shore it up should start thinking about what you're going to do. Take a look at your plans. in your operations manuals and start to consider these impacts. Now I'm going to turn back on the probability of tropical storm force winds again, because I want you to see how it impacts the New England states. Even from Long Island and New York, we have here, this is outside, is less than 5%. But just inside is a 5 to 10% chance that from New York, Long Island, all the way up through eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, from Boston on to eastern Maine, there is a chance, a 5 to 10% chance that these areas will experience tropical storm force winds. That's winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour. And the main thing that I want to discuss is that even though the cone of uncertainty is there, I really don't want you to pay much attention to it, because it's the impacts when the storm gets up that high in that high latitude that you may experience in the New England area. And so because of those impacts, I have put together a couple of information graphics for you and when you might start to experience these impacts. So on Cape Cod and into Maine and coastal New England, we're talking about the potential of high winds, particularly if Lee moves to the west, any farther west than what's forecast now. Those impacts will happen sooner than later. So we're talking about high winds, large waves along the coast. So we're talking about battering waves in some cases, and then heavy rainfall associated with the spiral bands of Lee as it moves to the north. So this could possibly impact transportation. Bridges may be closed, and also utilities with trees coming down, and utility infrastructure, critical infrastructure along the coastline is quite vulnerable, and also logistics and transportation. So the movement of goods and services may have a tougher time in the New England area, particularly along the coastline, inland, even including Boston during this upcoming weekend. So from a timing standpoint, what do we mean from a timing standpoint? So from Cape Cod and Maine, we're talking about potential timing of Friday through Sunday. It's not that the storm is going to last a long, long time during that whole period, but likely impacting Cape Cod late in the day on Friday and then extending on into Maine on Sunday. So all plans should be finished by this upcoming weekend, but pay attention. Make sure you pay attention at least twice a day to the updated National Hurricane Center forecast. We will be bringing you updates here for the sensitive information sharing environment to keep situational awareness going. And as the storm starts to move to the north, that's a critical turning point. If it's to the west of where the current forecast is, the cone may shift to the west. If it moves further to the east, then the cone may shift to the east. But the main thing that I want you to understand is the impacts go far beyond the cone. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that cone, really about the impacts that are expected. So we're still several days away from any sort of impact potentially to the U.S., particularly the Northeast U.S. One thing is for certain, we will have strong waves and large swells that are going to produce rip currents. So please stay out of the water this week because they're just going to get worse and worse as the days go on. So that's it for this update. I'm Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. This has been an update for the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment All Hazards Consortium. You can register at siseusa.org if you're a private business or you are an agency or a municipality and you want to improve the sharing of critical information during hazards and hazard response. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.